It's nice to have you all. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. For those like me from East Africa, it's evening, beginning of evening. This is the second live meeting or webinar that we are having for the workshop on quality assurance in e-learning. And Dr. Ephraim Mhlanga has been really taking us through this. Dr. Mhlanga is from the South African Institute for Distance Education, and he's taken out his time to take us through this workshop this week. We wish to welcome you for the second webinar in this one-week workshop. So I will hand over to you, Dr. Ephraim Mhlanga, so that you can take us through this. What we do is, if you have questions as he presents, please write them in the text chat and we shall respond to them in the presentation. So over to you, Dr. Mhlanga.
Thank you very much, and apologies for the internet glitch. I think it's from this end. Please do post messages in the text messages on the forum if you lose me. It does look like internet is not great this afternoon. Thank you again for the second live session of this workshop on quality assuring e-learning. I did look at the postings that were done over the week in the discussion forum, and I tried to distill from those postings some key themes around which I came up with those two questions that we are supposed to discuss this afternoon. I think they are quite pertinent questions because they address pertinent issues in the area of e-learning. The first one relates to the implications of increasing e-learning offerings in institutions. So I think we need to gain some appreciation of what this means in terms of what happens in conventional face-to-face programs, but also in terms of how we should respond to that increase in the offerings of e-learning from a quality assurance point of view. We did note on Tuesday that currently e-learning is being offered in the absence of significant regulatory frameworks by national quality assurance agencies. And if we accept that with an increasing number of students taking online courses, with increasing number of institutions offering online courses, then I think it follows logically that we need to find some way of ensuring that those offerings are quality assured, so we do not disadvantage the students who are enrolling on those courses. And so our discussion of that question on implications of increasing e-learning offerings is actually meant to help us appreciate the importance of regulating those e-learning offerings from a quality point of view. And I would love to hear from people, perhaps based on their experiences, on what you see to be some of the implications of e-learning offerings. I do have a few that I've observed from my experience here. The first one, I think, is that the increasing e-learning offerings are bringing about increased flexibility in terms of how higher education is provided. And so students have a wider choice of how to learn and when to learn and where to learn. They can choose to learn at night because they have access to the relevant technology. They can access all the course materials they need, and they can do all the assignments. They can post their ideas on forums. They can choose to learn from home or from their workplaces, or they can even come to campuses, but choose not to attend face-to-face sessions, go into the computer lab, or sit somewhere with their laptop where there is Wi-Fi, and they access the lecture notes from there. And so basically what we see is that there is increasing flexibility in terms of how people learn as we have more and more e-learning offerings in our institutions. So to me, I think it's a good development, and it's a good development because we provide an environment, a learning environment, where the needs of different learners are catered for in terms of learning. So somebody who doesn't want to go to campus can still be able to learn because of e-learning. I also think there are a lot of implications to face-to-face, conventional face-to-face programs. And I think, as Tony Carr rightly pointed out last Tuesday, if we offer the same program, say in an institution, face-to-face and online, we may lose students from the face-to-face program as more and more of them choose to enroll for the online program. And so that alone, I think, it tells us a lot about what is likely to happen with the programs that we currently offer face-to-face, as we have more and more such programs being offered online. We may have a lot of people choosing to choose the online route. So what it actually means to me is that we probably need to relook at the current face-to-face programs and maybe redesign them so that we reduce all those inconveniences that are associated with having students to learn from the same place at the same time. And Jacob, can you move on? Can you just flag my first slide where I try to discuss some of these things? Thank you very much. So yes, the flexibility aspect, which is that first bullet, is what I've just been talking to. But also the need to redesign our face-to-face programs in order to align them with the needs of the various students that we have, so that we don't place requirements for them to be at the same place at the same time for them to learn. In other words, we take advantage of the advent of technology and allow students to learn for some time independently from wherever they want to learn from, and probably convene on a limited number of occasions for face-to-face contacts. We may even give students the option to attend those face-to-face options if they so wish, or to indicate that kind of support as and when they need it. And arrangements can be made by the relevant lecturers and tutors for those sessions to be held. So the main point to me here is that the increasing number of online offerings, I think, may have profound implications on how we design and redesign our current face-to-face programs. Let's move on to the next slide, Jacob. So we have instances now where some students prefer not to register for all courses they want to do with one institution, they prefer to pick a few courses from institution A and maybe another course from institution B. It does look to me then that the advent of e-learning is dictating a new way of achieving academic aspirations on the part of students. I think the OER university model is a typical example of what I'm making reference to here. You may have a student registering with 3 different institutions for 3 different programs, and arrangements are made by those institutions to prefer qualificatory certificates. So yes, perhaps it's something that we have to think about. Is there need, because of the advent of technology, for institutions to collaborate in the offering of certain qualifications, so that institution A, probably because of the expertise it has, can offer courses A and B, and then institution B can offer a different set of courses, and all of them leading to a single qualification. Again, I think that this is made possible because of the advent of e-learning, because there is no need for a student to move physically to campus in order to learn. So yes, that I think defines some of the significant changes that are likely to take place in terms of how people learn and how people acquire qualifications. Somebody on Tuesday asked whether e-learning is likely to bring about the need to redefine campuses, university campuses. What is a campus? For a student who learns online and probably takes courses from 2 or 3 different institutions, what is a campus to them? Is it that learning environment, virtual environment, that constitutes a campus to that person? Or is it the physical campuses at the 2 or 3 institutions from where one is taking courses? And so, yes, I think we have to rethink not only of the definition of a campus, but also of the significance of a campus as it is conventionally known. There is also the phenomenon of transnational offering of higher education programs, which has been intensified, I think, by the advent of e-learning. We do have transnational higher education happening even in the absence of technology. You have institutions developing campuses in other countries. So even if they don't use technology, they can still be engaged in transnational higher education provision. But I think this process is going to be enhanced by e-learning. And we already have that happening quite a lot, even in our African countries. We have a lot of students in our countries who take e-learning courses with institutions that are overseas. And sometimes we don't even get to know about it. Again, that is an aspect that needs to be scrutinized very carefully in order to see how quality issues can be handled. And I really would have loved through this discussion to get people's opinions and ideas on how they think such offerings, transnational offerings, should be quality assured. We need probably in this regard to go back to the UNESCO regulations. UNESCO has guidelines actually on the offering of transnational higher education, and I think those guidelines are extremely helpful for e-learning that is offered across national boundaries. Although we may need to beef them up in order to take care of other things that are not yet covered in those guidelines. But I think they go to quite an extent in assisting us in regulating e-learning. One of the things I think should happen, and probably happen very quickly, is for national quality assurance agencies probably working with the relevant ministries of education to disseminate information to all people and all stakeholders within a country with regards to organizations, private organizations, as well as institutions, public institutions, private institutions that offer e-learning, so that before people enroll for courses with those institutions, they make an attempt to verify the credibility of the courses as well as the credibility of those institutions in their home countries. A lot of people do not know that if they enroll with such institutions, they may actually enroll with bogus institutions. And it is very frustrating often that after going through a cycle of learning and paying some money for that learning, you end up with a certificate that does not take you anywhere in terms of employment opportunities. So I think we need to have a well-informed society because of the advent and prevalence of e-learning. Some of the organizations that offer those e-learning programs are not necessarily credible organizations. And so, yes, I do think there is a lot that has to be done in order to protect our people when it comes to e-learning. I'm seeing some of the ideas that are being posted here. I think they are very, very useful indeed. If I may just go back to two of them. Somebody says here we can begin from the quality assurance agencies for higher education, like the National Council for Higher Education and Accreditation, which are a government arm for higher education ministries to monitor and maintain quality in higher education. That's very true, Dr. Makuku. They need to design standards and guidelines and benchmarks which they can disseminate to individual university quality assurance directorates and quality assurance units for implementation. This would need to be monitored by those councils, the national quality assurance agencies. Yes, indeed, that's a very important point. I think we need to do that. But perhaps, like I would suggest, as a starting point, capacity is still very limited in most of our countries in terms of developing such guidelines. Hence the importance of this network, the eMage Africa network. If we can be able to come up with some draft guidelines that can probably inform those national quality assurance agencies and the relevant ministries, perhaps that would be extremely helpful in terms of giving people a starting point in developing quality guidelines for online learning. So I will suggest that right towards the end. And again, somebody here says they may build quality into the way they conceptualize and design their e-learning courses based on explicitly quality enhancement criteria. I do like that part of it. Explicitly quality enhancement criteria. Remember on Tuesday, we did talk about the need for us to make our quality assurance processes explicit. And the only way we can do that is by using explicit standards, explicit criteria. And this is what somebody is suggesting here. Rather than measure bed quality long after the courses are delivered. Again, something from our definition of quality assurance that we discussed on Tuesday, that it is a proactive process rather than a reactive process. We don't wait until the damage is done. We want to put in place mechanisms and systems that ensure that indeed what we're going to deliver will be credible. And by so doing, we do not end up disadvantaging our students. So yes, we need to have explicit quality guidelines, and we need to have them early enough before damage is done. Okay, I will continue to look for some more postings, and we can continue to discuss them. But if I may just continue with this discussion on the slides. So yes, I was recommending that we probably need to go to look at the UNESCO guidelines on transnational provision of higher education and structure our own contextually relevant and effective guidelines on e-learning. If we may move to the next slide, Jacob. Can we move to the next slide? Thank you. An important question that was raised on Tuesday, but also that I saw was posted in the discussion forum over the week, relates to how exactly we should measure quality in e-learning. How do we measure quality in e-learning? Again, there were a few suggestions that were given last Tuesday, and some people also posted something on that. But I decided to revisit this question so that after discussing it, we probably can be able to say, so from here, where do we go? What is the way forward? And the idea then is to try and get us to appreciate the importance of coming up with guidelines that we can use practically in quality assuring e-learning. So yes, can you put that whole slide on for question 2, Jacob? There is a diagram, this is there. Can you go back to question 2, Jacob? Yes, there is a diagram there. Maybe it's not coming out. Okay, if it's not coming out, that's fine. I'll just mention elements that are included in that diagram. I put a slide based on some of the suggestions that were raised in the Tuesday discussion, and I think it's Nancy White who raised those suggestions. How do we quality assure e-learning? One of the ways we can do that, and which he raised, is through peer reviews. I think we need to peer review our work, and it's much easier and much more cost effective with e-learning, because we do not have to send any hard copy documents. We do not have to have people traveling and incurring costs on accommodation and travel. All we do perhaps is to avail the relevant URLs for them to access our courses and access maybe our quality assurance tools, and ask them to evaluate the courses and give us feedback. So we need to do that constant peer reviewing of each other's practice. I think it's one good way that academics can use in order to enhance the quality of their e-learning. The other point that Nancy raised has to do with using student data. So the first thing there is to capture the data. And I know a lot of institutions do capture data on students, but perhaps what is not done effectively is analyzing that data carefully and making the results of that analysis feed back to planning processes in order to continually improve. And that's exactly what we need to do. We need to make use of data from students in order to improve. What sort of data is one thinking about here? Perhaps data that has to do with student throughput rates, data that has to do with courses or modules where most students don't seem to do well, data that has to do with the stage at which a lot of students tend to drop out of courses and programs, data that probably has to come directly from students. In other words, do you get regular feedback on your e-learning courses from your students, the people who directly experience e-learning? Do you deliberately provide a facility in your e-learning system for your students to constantly give you feedback, and then you analyze that feedback and you use it for purposes of improvement? So I strongly believe that using students' data is one important way in which we can be able to improve our e-learning. I need to mention also that's not unique to e-learning programs and e-learning offerings. You can use that even in face-to-face kind of offerings. The problem I see, I think, is that people don't seem to have the time to want to dig into that data and analyze it and see trends and use it for the benefit of students. Jacob is trying to load that diagram. Let's see if it is coming up. Jacob, he's going to share his screen with us and load that diagram. I think it's loading. Yes, Dr. Makuku, data that has to do with students' expectations, with students' challenges, the challenges they face when they learn online, as well as their suggestions on improvement. Yes, thank you very much, Jacob. There is the diagram. I think you can all see it. So it's exactly what I've been talking about, improving the quality of our e-learning through peer reviews, through using data from students, through also documenting lessons of experience. There are people on Tuesday, during the first live session, who indicated that they've been offering e-learning in certain of their programs for quite some time. Some indicated 12 years in the survey, others indicated 10 years. So we do have people in Africa who have been offering e-learning for quite some time. Their experiences, I think, are quite educative in terms of some of the challenges that are faced and how we can be able to go around them. So I think if we document our experiences as we roll out our e-learning programs, we can be able to work around those things and improve the quality of our offerings. In most institutions, we also have centers or departments or offices that are responsible for teaching and learning. And a lot of them, as part of their work, review the teaching and learning programs of institutions, right? And they constantly give feedback to management in that institution, as well as to the relevant academic units in the university. So those reviews from the Teaching and Learning Center, I think, are also important information that we can use for purposes of improvement. So yes, I do think what Nancy White raised there in terms of those 4 possible ways of improving the quality of our e-learning are quite important points to get cues from. Mohammed is the next slide now, Jacob. Mohammed Ahmed did mention the importance of, we are still under 2, Jacob, did raise the importance of measuring learning outcomes. So, yes, do we make an attempt to measure the learning outcomes of our e-learning programs? And of course, the question I have, and which I believe a lot of people would also have, is how exactly do we do that? How do we do it for face-to-face programs? How do we do it for online programs? But I think there is merit in that. If we can be able to find ways of measuring student outcomes, learning outcomes, then learning outcomes of our e-learning programs, then we can be able to have a way of making improvements from that point of view. Antonio also did mention something that is very important in terms of e-learning. He mentioned that we need to develop e-learning policies. I suppose these could be institutional policies. it is a key thing that we have an overarching policy, which is an overarching guideline wherever we have e-learning. And I think the advantages are many of having such policies. Policies do not only enable you to enlist the support of institutional management and therefore probably also get more resources. They also enable people to understand how things are implemented, the sort of investments that are being done in the university. For technological infrastructure is one of the key things to have where e-learning takes place. So policy is important because it guides developments of such infrastructure at an institutional level. So overall, what a policy does is that it helps an institution create an enabling environment for e-learning to be rolled out, good quality e-learning to be rolled out. And I see here that I think Nitula is saying this is timely for us as we have recently set up our Higher Education Council. Oh yes. So your council would have to start grappling with some of these things, and the task will be easier for that council if there are some other people around, champions, who can be able to come up, who are very forthcoming with their ideas and suggestions on how to handle some of these things. It will be pretty difficult for new people who are appointed into those councils if they do not have the relevant background experience and knowledge of how e-learning is rolled out and how it can be quality assured. So we need to build, even at country level, a critical mass of people with the relevant expertise and who buy in to e-learning as well as the quality assurance mechanisms for that mode of delivery. Okay, so yes, I've just been commenting to one of the ideas posted there, but I'll go back to this policy issue that I was talking about. So yes, it is good practice to encourage the development of an e-learning policy at an institution. Okay. Therefore, this brings us to a very important question that was posted by most people in the forum, that how then do we overcome our cognitive biases? How do we overcome those so that we get convinced as individuals that in fact what we are doing is not of good quality? We probably have preconceived ideas already about what we are doing, and we may be convinced that it is of good quality when in fact it is not. So is there anybody who can post some ideas there in terms of how we can overcome those cognitive biases in terms of the quality of our e-learning offerings? Anybody who can post something there? Whilst you think about it, perhaps I can point out that the criteria that we mentioned, I think, is one way of helping you out of your cognitive biases, because you have to judge what you do in accordance with the laid down criteria. But the peer reviewing process also, I think, will help you a lot in terms of getting other people's views and ideas about your quality. Dr. Makuku is saying, I completely agree with what you said, Ephraim. Without support of relevant stakeholders, it is difficult. We need their buy-in and work with everyone from the beginning. Yes, indeed. We do need the buy-in of all stakeholders in our institutions, including top management, but also including even the very clients, the students that we serve. Okay, so yes, if we use peer review systems, if we use explicit quality criteria, if we use explicit data that we collect from students, I think we can be able to overcome some of those biases. Because whilst I might believe that the online course that I have designed is a good quality course, my students might actually tell me that, no, that's trash. That course is not a good course at all. Whilst I may believe that the assessment strategy that I've developed for my online course is very good because I've invested so much effort in terms of time and research into it, another colleague from another institution or even from the same institution through a peer review process might tell me that in fact that assessment strategy does not work. It is not a good strategy at all. So yes, we can be able to move out of our cognitive biases if we use some of those suggested ways of quality assured e-learning. Yes, we can move on to the third slide, Jacob, and that's the slide that touches on the all-important aspect of assessment. Remember what I said on Tuesday, that a lot of people do express concerns about how online courses are assessed, and people believe that there is very little by way of assessing the high cognitive levels. People tend to concentrate only on the low cognitive skills. But I think Dr. Makuku argued here that even high skills can be assessed online. And I think it's very true. We can assess online. What I think we need is to share how this can be done. That's what we need to share. People who have experience in doing this, or people who have some ideas on how you can be able to test high cognitive skills in online assessment, we would like you to post those ideas on the forum. And I'm going to request if Dr. Makuku is keen to maybe do us a half to one pager, giving us hints, if possible, including examples of how one can be able to assess high cognitive skills through online assessment. And then if we have more posts on the forum, I think she can be able to enrich the document, and she sends it to me. I'll make my input, and we can have something that can be circulated amongst ourselves in terms of how we can be able to assess, to have good quality assessment for our online offerings. Do you think that is a good idea? Let's see your feedback from on the forum. Yes, beyond recall and textbook solutions, that's right. We want to test our students beyond that, beyond simply recalling what some author says on some page of his topic in a textbook. We want to test them whether they are able to apply those concepts. We want to test them whether they are able to create things out of what they learn. Yes, Dr. Makuku says you need to set tasks that test the skills you want to inculcate, e.g. analytical skills, examination skills. Absolutely, yes. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes, Tony is saying, is this anything new? The same strategy that is used in well-designed examinations. Absolutely, absolutely. I think in contact institutions, this has been used for long. I'm not sure, Tony, though, that a lot of academics are familiar with how to construct those kinds of examination items online. Perhaps that's where the challenge is. Yeah. Okay. I'm just looking at what people are posting there. So the bottom line to me is that we probably need to craft guidelines on that, so people can be able to draw those guidelines and engage in good practice. Okay, can we move on to the next slide, Tony? Jacob, sorry. I don't think that maybe you should skip those, otherwise we would have too many questions to go with. You can go on to the next one, the next slide. Yes. Sorry, maybe I confused you. Can you go to the previous one? Well, yes. Again, I think we should skip those. The complaints that come from students, those can act as guidelines as to the areas that we need to pay attention to when we develop our quality criteria. We can look at those very sensitive areas and then try and come up with mechanisms that help students manage in those areas. The second bullet there is obvious. Of course, yes, like what people have suggested here, national quality assurance agencies will need to regulate e-learning. There's no way they can ignore that aspect of delivery, because we saw that it is on the increase, and it is also the responsibility of those national quality assurance agencies to deal with quality issues in all forms, in all modes of offerings. So yes, we really need to do that. Okay, so what I want us to get to is to look at the task towards an emerging quality assurance instrument for e-learning in Africa. If you can go to that slide, Jacob, towards an emerging quality assurance instrument for e-learning in Africa. Well, having discussed what you've discussed, yes, thank you. I thought it would be a good idea if we get a small group of people to actually work on certain things that we can share as a network and then eventually publish on our website. And people in institutions in Africa can access those kinds of tools from the website and be able to use them in their day-to-day practice in order to enhance the quality of e-learning. So the first one was specifically on assessment and assessment of high-level cognitive skills in e-learning, precisely what we've been posting here. And I was going to suggest whether Dr. Violet Makuku would be keen to lead this kind of task if people post some ideas, and she can be able to put together something which we can refine and then we can publish on the website. Do you think this is a good thing to do? Dr. Makuku, would you be keen to lead that process in terms of assessment? I'm aware that there are people who are well versed with assessing well online. Thank you very much, Dr. Makuku. Yes, Dr. Makuku agrees. Do that. That's great. Let's have that. Do we want to give ourselves some rough timelines by which we can have a draft of these things done? Maybe, Dr. Makuku, how long do you think you would need to do this and then send it to me? Oh yes, Tula there is keen to join as a student to be mentored. That would be great. So, Dr. Makuku, there is Tula there who is keen to join. How do people communicate? Do they have access to each other's email addresses? Because Dr. Makuku needs to link up with Tula there. Yes, Dr. Makuku says, kindly pass on any ideas if you have any for me to add. Yes, thank you very much, Tony. The email addresses can be shared amongst us. That would be great. Thank you very much, Dr. Makuku. And she has given her email address there. She can be able to come up with this draft document within a week from today. Thanks very much. That would be great. And if we put the 10th of September, for instance, if you can be able to send the document to me by the 10th of September, if you send it earlier, that would even be great. But if I can get it by the 10th of September, then I can be able to make my input and then send it. Great. I can see people already sharing email addresses there, which is good. I'm already typing in mine. ephraim.org.za. There is my email address, ephraim@saidi.org.za. That's great. Thanks very much. So that is by the 10th of September, I'm likely to get a document on assessment. Draft. It will be in draft form, and then I will also make my input. Draft document on assessment. Okay. Thank you very much. And then the second suggestion that I had was, again, we could have another small group of people putting together a draft quality assurance standards. General standards. Don't worry about the wording. Don't worry about the precision. Just make the general standards that point at the sort of things that need to be quality assured in online learning. Then you send that document to me, and I will refine it. I will make my input and refine it. Again, we can circulate it and also have it on our website. Yes, Tony is suggesting that we use Google Docs for those inputs. And if we used Google Docs, then there may be no rely heavily on emails. Yeah. Yes, Irene, that would be a good idea if you create that. I think that would be a good idea, and then you communicate that to everybody. I think that should work well for collaborative input, Sean, yes. So Irene is going to create that facility on Google Docs, and then we will have people posting on those draft quality standards for e-learning. Yeah, that's what I think. I think we need something more. That's why I thought maybe people can post whatever they're going to post, their ideas, their suggestions. We need a small group to collect everything, and then have a draft document, which then will be forwarded to me. Who volunteers to do that collection for the draft quality assurance standards? Anybody who volunteers? Tony volunteers. Thank you very much, Tony. So please, let's have everybody giving suggestions in the forum, in the Google Docs, and then Tony will collect and send to me, and then I'll make my input, and we can circulate. I think this is fantastic. So, like we did with the e-assessment document, by when are we? Can we have this draft document on quality standards? Can people suggest? Tony, would you have a sense of when? Can we put it at, I think this could be a bit more involving, end of September, yes. That's what I was thinking as well. End of September is good, yes. So let's have it by end of September. Draft document. Sorry, I'm just typing it in the draft document on quality standards. By end of September. Thank you very much. Once I have those, I will try as much as possible to hasten the process of refining them and disseminating them through Jacob and Tony. Colleagues, thank you very much. I think this has been a very fruitful session. Unless there are any questions or any other suggestions from participants, I think this is what I thought I could share with you this afternoon. Anything else, Jacob? Dr. Makoko is asking for the previous slides.
Go on, Dr. Mhlanga. Thank you so much for the presentation. We really enjoyed this. This was really great. We have delivered. We have a timeline. I think this is really good. If we have some questions, perhaps we give it with 2 more minutes. Let's see if anyone has any questions, then we can check those in the next 2 minutes before we wind up, please.
That's right. Any 2 questions that we can take within these last 2 minutes?
As we wait for the questions, please remember we still have the forum ongoing. We have the links which we shared with you. You could continue some of the questions that you saw us discuss here today are also in the forum. You can also questions if you so wish, or as the forum requests, add a topic. It would be really nice to get feedback or to get contributions from all of you. You can go at any time. If it asks for sign-in, you just need to sign in so that you accept it. There's nothing big. It's just that we keep records of who comes in. So please do that, and everything is all open. We're looking forward to the end of September and hoping all have some few documents by then. I wish to thank Dr. Ephraim Mhlanga for giving us this presentation and the workshop for the whole week. And I now, if you have something to say, Dr. Ephraim, before I hand over to Jacob.
Not really, but Tony has raised a very important question there, that how do these processes we are suggesting relate to the AAU processes? You know, the AAU is also working on similar issues. So I was going to suggest that perhaps what we can do is, when we have our final documents, we could probably exchange them with the AAU and maybe find ways of coming up with a single document that can then be shared with everybody else in Africa. Maybe that's another way of doing it. And like we discussed again on Tuesday, I think quality assurance standards generally are sensitive to context. So people might actually, for their institution and their specific programs, choose to draw from different documents in order to come up with something that is contextually relevant for their purposes. So there are various ways in which we can be able to use them, even if the AAU has similar processes. Thank you very much, Irene.
And thank you very much to you, Ephraim Mhlanga. This is a very exciting process, and it's going to be very exciting to see where this takes us towards the end of September. I see there are still some typing in the chat, so maybe we can give it just a couple of more minutes.
Yes. Yeah, Dr. Makoko is mentioning the HAQAA website. I think if we can make an attempt to visit that website and see what is happening there. I'm aware that there are places like in the US where we have a whole lot of different kinds of standards developed by different organizations and institutions within a single state, for instance. And people tend to choose, although they tend to basic minimum requirements.
And of course, all these links and an upcoming shared Google Doc is something that we will definitely be sharing on our seminar landing page.
Okay.
Just once again, just paste the link in the chat here.
Okay.
It's also accessible from our Emerge Africa /live website as well.
Ah, great. Okay.
So that can serve as a place to hold resources.
Absolutely.
All right, we are a few minutes beyond the scheduled end time, so I would like to thank you, Dr. Makuku, Mohammed, and Tula. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. And once again, thank you to you, Ephraim. And also thank you to Irene, the facilitator for this particular session, and to Catherine as well, to the strings in the background as well. And to you, Tony. Have a good evening, everybody, and let's see where this can get us.
Thank you very much, and bye, everyone.